Welcome to the inner world of filmmaking. I'm your host, Tammy McGarrow. I'm a writer, director, editor, and a podcast producer. In this show, I will interview filmmakers in all facets of production and distribution. This episode, we're talking to the talented Randy Davison on his journey as an actor. He's been in hundreds of TV shows, commercials, and films. He's worked on Mank, Top Gun Maverick, and the United States versus Billie Holiday, to name a few. Welcome, Randy. So glad to have you on the show today.
Thanks, Tammy. Good to be here.
So you're originally from Idaho.
Uh-huh.
What made you want to become an actor and give it a go in Los Angeles?
Oh, wow. I think the first moment I knew I wanted to be an actor was when a touring group of the musical Jungle Book came to my school when I was in fourth grade. And it was a youth group or a youth touring group. And I'd recognized the kid who played Baloo the Bear from Little League. Like I'd played him in another state. It was what I wanted to do. I was so jealous. I was like, man, this is what I want to do. And then in seventh grade, I started taking drama. Shakespeareans came to my school, and I loved that. So I worked with some summer Shakespeare festivals, internships in college. And after college, I decided, actually, it wasn't right after college. Around 2000 is when I moved to LA. My sister, she was diagnosed with Lou Gehrig's disease, ALS. So I stuck around for my family until we were able to deal with that. We ended up losing her, unfortunately, but It was her dream for me to pursue it too. And so I'm doing it for both of us.
Well, I'm sure she's very happy. Yeah. And I'm sorry to hear that.
Thank you.
So what was your road to becoming a full-time actor?
You know, I did it for about 5 years in LA. I ended up working for a company, a casino, and I ended up moving into management, moved to San Diego. I moved to San Diego to do a show at a theater. I commute back and forth. But yeah, I got stuck in management in this casino business for between 2005 and 2010. I gave it up. And then I got laid off. Another company came in and took over, and doing it ever since. It was the best thing that ever happened to me.
It's funny how that happens. You know, like life kind of pushes you in the direction maybe you need to be in.
It does. Yeah. I mean, I go back and forth to LA, but I'm in San Diego more often than not, just because the industry has changed with COVID. Mm-hmm. All the auditions are from home. So a screen now for my auditions in the back and good setup for cameras. So it's really beneficial for an actor.
Yeah, that must be nice. You know, at this point, you can live anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And always just fly in and stuff. So,
right.
And you're a Sag actor.
Mm-hmm.
How does one make that transition from non-union to union Sag?
That's a different journey for so many people. My journey was, I had a friend from Idaho who knew a production coordinator, and they got me on set as a PA. And he knew that I needed SAG vouchers in order to get in SAG. So he put me on as an extra for a couple of days. 2 days was the only amount of time he could get me on. I had so much work to do as a PA. And then I still needed one more. It took me another year to get that final voucher. And I worked on the movie The Banger Sisters with Goldie Hawn and Susan Sarandon. I played a teacher. I ended up getting a SAG voucher for that since it was a featured role. And that was it. I joined right away. I'd been trying to do it, I think, for a year and a half before I finally got it. But some people, it takes them years.
Yeah.
It's easier now, I think. Back when I did it, I don't want to date myself, but it was early 2000s. Now it's easier because all the new media. So there's web series that are SAG. So it's easier for someone to get into SAG, Taft-Hartley them or waive it so they can get in.
Mm-hmm.
They still did that back then, but it was a lot harder for an actor to be Taft-Hartley because they had to pay a hefty fine.
Is it advantageous or the goal to be SAG?
Oh, yeah. The jobs and the money are night and day.
You and Merrick McCarthy are in a lot of 48-hour film projects and working on a lot of our short films and stuff. So you're pretty well known in our San Diego community for sure. I think so. Yeah. I mean, I see you in everything. I mean, sometimes you'll even be in a couple of films in the 48.
Yeah,
how do you do that?
There was a while we were doing that. It was kind of a challenge between each other to see how many we could do. The 48, we love doing it just because it's a good challenge. I mean, you get a role, they write it the night of. You have maybe an hour to memorize your lines, and you got to go. It's usually 7 or 8 pages, so the dialogue can be heavy. So it's a good challenge. I don't know how many more I'm going to do. I'm getting too old to stay up all night on those kind of things. It's
right.
But they're fun. They're fun.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you also worked on a film, Mank, directed by
Mhm.
David Fincher. What was it like working with him?
Oh my God, it was a dream. It was a dream. Especially, a lot of people hate this, but I was working with David Fincher and Gary Oldman, and he would
Mhm.
take like 50 takes each time. Actors hate that, but I loved it because I was getting to work with Gary Oldman, so I was chewing it up every moment. He's very specific about what he wants, almost mechanical sometimes. I remember I did my first scene and played the Maître D. Gary Oldman comes in. I go, "Oh, Mr. Mankiewicz." Oh no, I'm sorry. That was the second scene. So I come in and Mr. Mankiewicz, I do a clap. I go, "Oh, Mr. Mankiewicz, you have a phone call in the lobby right this way." Continuity lady comes over and just almost in a panic, she goes, "Okay, I just want to let you know, you clapped when you said Mr. Mankiewicz. You clapped. Please make sure you do that again because Mr. Fincher's he wants continuity in every take the same." She goes, "You can, mix up the way you say it. You don't have to say it exactly the same each time, but if you do something with your body, please keep it exactly the same." So, and I knew that about him already. I'd seen other actors. There was a scene where somebody had to turn an alarm clock off. They had to do it like 100 times because they just that finger wasn't in the right place.
Oh, wow.
And I even saw it on set with. Luckily, I had one moment where where he kind of got on me, but it was a mix up in communication. Gary Oldman had to take this giant champagne bottle out of a bucket, and his line was he sits down in this awkward moment, picks up this giant champagne bottle, and says, "So, what's everyone else having?" In his 1940s mid-Atlantic accent. And Fincher says, "Gary, I need you to move the nose of the bottle 2 more inches to the right." So we must have done it like 30 times. Gary Oldman was getting pissed. He's like, "God damn it, David! Like I'm doing exactly what you said." And Fincher comes over and goes, "No, like this. Pick it up right here. I want the bottle, the nose here." All right, all right. Well, he did it, and he finally did. He goes, "That's it, Gary. That's it. Thank you." So I could see Gary Oldman get a little tense a couple of times, it was fun just to watch them. There's one moment where I bring him to the phone, and the AD comes over and he says, when you bring him to the phone, could you point higher, or so you can see my hand? Would you point higher so the camera can see you?" I said, "Okay, sure." Okay,
Yeah.
I'm just direct quoting him. So I come in and I go, "Mr. Mickwitz." Phone, and Fincher comes over and he's like, "What the fuck are you doing? The phone is down here. Why are you pointing up here?" I said, "The AD told me to point up here so the camera can see my hand." He goes, "Camera can see your fucking hand. Just point at the phone." Like, okay, sure. So there was that miscommunication. So I do it the second time, point down at the phone. The AD comes up and he goes, "What are you doing? I told you to point up here so the camera could see you." So I got a little flustered. I go, "Gary told me to point down here at the phone." He goes, "Gary told you that?" "No, I mean David. David told me to point down here." He's like, "Oh, David told you that. Okay, proceed." So, so there's that little miscommunication. That was the only time. The really cool note he gave me. So the second scene I come in, originally the line was just, "Mr. Mankiewicz, phone." It was really cool that Fincher gave me free reign to do whatever I wanted. He said, I'm going to give you a little more to work with here. You're going to walk in rather than him walking by the table. You're going to walk in, meet him halfway across the dance floor." And I had to count my steps because I had to meet him exactly the same time every time. So I meet him at the dance floor. And, he kind of demonstrated, he said, "You messed his name up in the first scene." That's what the character does. There's two Mankiewiczes and he sends him to the wrong table and he's a bigwig, and Oldman gets, kind of uppity about it. So I come in and he said, "Apologize to him. I'm so sorry. You have a phone call, whatever the fuck you want to say."
Right.
So I kind of took that energy that he did. Like, it was kind of a little frantic. So I come in and I go, "Mr. Mankiewicz, I'm so sorry to bother you, but you have a phone call in the lobby." And so Fincher comes. This is our first rehearsal. He gives Gary Oldman his notes. And then he says to me, he goes, "Waiters hustle, Maître D's glide." He patted me on the back. I'm like, "Oh, okay, I got it." I just kind of took his energy and thought that's what he wanted. So then I come in, I'm like, "Mr. Mankiewicz, I'm so sorry to bother you, but you have a phone call in the lobby right this way." So it just changed. And then and from the monitor, he goes, so that felt really good to get a thumbs up from David Fincher.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
So how many times do you have to rehearse a scene before you actually start shooting?
Let's see. I think we just did one rehearsal usually of each scene, one or two at most, and then take after take after take.
Yeah.
which was awesome. There was one scene where a bunch of balloons drop out of these nets, and everybody, all the extras, all the actors, all the crew had to pick up the balloons, get them back in the nets, and put them up. Get them back in the nets, put them up. That was the most grueling scene. That like this scene is horrible because I'm still at the table in the back, like doing my thing. But that was the only scene that was like, oh, I want this scene to be over.
I bet that David Fincher is a dream for any editor because then there's a lot of consistency with continuity. And probably teaches you. Do you feel like coming from that role and doing other roles, it really teaches you that, like to really be very consistent?
As an actor, I've always tried to do that.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of been ingrained in acting schools that I've been in, especially on film. Theater, you can do whatever aside from the blocking set, but like business that you do, you're open to do that. But on film, you can play with the dialogue, you can try new things, but you want to keep, if you're smoking a cigarette, you want to take a drag at the exact same time every time, which I ended up having to do that on the United States versus Billie Holiday, which I had learned from another film that I did where I must have smoked a whole pack in 6 hours doing another shoot. And you have to take that drag the exact same moment before your line or after your line or whenever. Now,
do you smoke?
I don't.
Okay. So how is that, having a role where you have to smoke for a non-smoker?
Well,
how do you do it?
It's not that I can't say that I'm not a smoker, but I have, especially when I'm doing a role like that, I'll practice. Like I'll go out to the bar with friends and we'll go outside and have a smoke. So I guess I am a smoker when I'm when I'm doing a role like that, because I want to inhale. It drives me absolutely bonkers when I see an actor who takes a puff on a cigarette and they just go, they blow it out with that. It's like, don't smoke in the movie if you're not going to smoke.
That's true.
It looks so cool to, take that pull and then it's very cinematic. I think smoking looks cool on film. I don't think it's cool in general, but I think it looks cool on film.
Yeah. So how did you prepare for the role of Maître D?
You're going to laugh at my inspiration. So I created a character who would have been Barney from Pretty Woman's father. Hector Elizondo, the maitre d' or the hotel manager, kind of trained her. And so I kind of just picked up some of his movements. I watched some old 1930s movies. There was actually a movie called The Trocadero, which was the club that I was the maitre d' of. And there was a guy that was a maitre d' in that I watched how he moved. The acting was so different back in the 30s, though, which was kind of what they tried to capture in this. So I think it was very helpful. They have this like mid-Atlantic accent and they chew on their words back then. So it was fun. It was different and it was fun. It was black and white. That was another opportunity that I've never had, which was really cool. I felt like I was a part of history. And they sent me an Oscar gift, which was really cool. It was a giant coffee table book with, pictures from the movie and the story of Mank, interviews with makeup, hair, actors. It was the coolest gift. And I opened it up about halfway. There's a double, like centerfold almost. It's a double page of my scene where I'm talking to Gary Oldman. Gary Oldman's on this side of the page and I'm on the other talking. It was just the coolest thing ever.
And then what was it like working with Gary Oldman? Like, what is he like? Is he a serious get on set or does he joke?
He is not what I expected. I expected, Daniel Day-Lewis, like when he shows up on set, you have to call him Mr. President when he's playing Lincoln. The first rehearsal, I was a fanboy. He's one of my favorite actors of all time. So this was a dream come true. So I meet him. We're about to do our first rehearsal, and I say, Mr. Oldman, I just want to tell you, it's an honor to get to speak to you in a scene. You're literally one of my favorite actors of all time. And he was just so gracious. He put his arm around me and goes, "Oh, thank you. That means so much to me. What's your name?" Randy. I was like, "Nice to meet you, Randy." And then I mentioned, I had to. I said, we need to get a picture before this is over. It would be a treasured photo for me if we could do that. And I had friends say, "You're going to be in the movie with him. That's not a photo."
Right.
It's like, but it's black and white. I want a selfie with Gary Oldman, And so he says, "Wow, David doesn't want a costume to get out. He doesn't want people to see the pictures." And he was taking pictures with his cell phone. He goes, "Do you have your cell phone?" This was just for the rehearsal because we had to go back to our trailer. Yeah, it's in my back pocket. He goes, let's take a selfie. So he like puts his arm around me and we take a selfie. It's my favorite picture on Facebook. I think I like, where you can tag it and make it go to the beginning of your pictures. I did that for like months, I think. So yeah, he was just so gracious. How he works, I thought he would be super method. And I even asked the AD, I said, I thought Gary would be really method. And he said, well, today's a light day. So he's a little more jokey on set. If like the big scene that he has where he has to be really emotional, like his Oscar right. nominated scenes, he goes off in a corner and we know not to talk to him. But in between one of the takes, there's a black phone on my desk. He looks at me, he picks it up. He goes, this is Commissioner Gordon. Get me Batman. He hangs the phone up. He was just real like light, jokey. And even on our breaks, he's just so personal. He's like, hey, Randy, come here. I want to show you a video. Show me a video about an accent that was only in Britain in the 1930s that kind of went away. That was sort of an effeminate sounding accent that was prominent among the theatrical crowd back then. He was saying he wanted to play a role with this accent that had never been done. It was just really cool. He was asking me about Idaho, where I grew up, the blue football turf. He said, he goes, I know Boise, the blue football turf. I was like, no, it's Boise. Anyone who's from there, there's no Z in it. It's an S. So he's like, I'll remember that. Next time I'll always call it Boise from now on. It was just amazing. He was amazing.
Now, are you able to watch other scenes? Like, can you just hang out on set?
I did. Yeah, I was there. So I had 2 scenes, and most of my scenes were done in 2 days. So I was in the first scene and the last scene. So the first day was, these are 15-hour days too, whether I'm working or not. The first scene, I worked all day pretty much. The second day, the third day, a couple of times I'm in the back doing my thing or bringing someone to a table. But I just stood behind the monitor and watched Fincher work and Oldman work. That was really cool to watch. These black and white cameras on monitor were absolutely stunning. I wish people could see that because he degraded the film to make it look like a 1930s film, but it was just so rich looking. And there was and it was all about shadows and lighting. And there were all these just beautiful red hair on women and these sparkling red dresses and men in these like rich colored shirts. And I wish people could have seen it in color. Just the set that we filmed on was all this red wood mahogany. But it was black and white. That's why I really wanted some pictures, but they didn't want any on-set shots, really. There was a scene where Ben Kingsley's son, Ferdinand Kingsley, Gary Oldman walks in, and he's kind of like this. He's like, Mankiewicz, Mank, I thought you'd be home licking your wounds in your pajamas. Fincher says to him, he goes, hey, Ferdinand, put your fucking chin down. You look sinister. And so these guys change from their accents like on a dime. I thought they would stay and, he's doing the Mid-Atlantic. He's like, what you mean, Gary? Like, you look evil. Put your chin down. He's like, all right. And then he comes in, Mr. Mankiewicz, I thought you'd be licking your wounds in your pajamas. And he's like, God damn it, Ferdinand, put your chin down. He's like, come here, come look at the monitor. And then they showed him playback. And I'm just standing behind watching all this. And he looks at the monitor and he's like, okay. All right, I see what you mean. And then he goes back. And then he comes in. He's like, Mank, thought you'd be home licking your wounds in your pajamas. Everything, like the lighting, was such a detail because he did when he was like this, cast a shadow down on his face and he just looked evil. Black and white just has that rich, emotional, I don't know how to describe it. Like the shadows that black and white creates is just so moody and can change the tone of just a slight movement can change so much. And Fincher was, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say Fincher was pretty much like the DP, even though the DP of the film won Best Cinematography. They were working hand in hand. Like Fincher would be measuring your nose to the camera and he would be setting up shots. I mean, he was super hands-on. So it was really cool to watch.
Yeah. What an opportunity to do a black and white, because that probably doesn't come along nowadays very often. So now you can say that you've done both. Yeah.
I actually just worked on a feature maybe 2 months ago that was black and white, which was cool. But it's one of those that's filmed in the 4x3 or whatever. Yeah. I mean, it's like the lighthouse. Mm-hmm. So it has that. That's actually how they filmed it in the 1930s. I'm surprised Mank didn't have I don't know what that's called. Yeah, what aspect ratio that is.
Right. I thought it's 4x3.
4x3. Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting to really mimic it by shooting in the way it used to be. But also, we're so used to sometimes when I see those kind of films, I'm just like, oh my God, I want the whole, 60 by 9 or, the cinematic look. But then you also worked in Top Gun Maverick. I mean, what an opportunity there. So tell us how you got that film and what was it like filming on set?
So that one's not a lot to write home about. And I've actually, through the grapevine, heard that our scene might be mostly cut. So fingers crossed we still made it. But it's basically, I can't really talk about it. I don't know how much I can talk about that one.
Did you meet Tom Cruise?
Oh, yeah. We met Tom Cruise.
And how was he?
Super, super nice, super personable. I looked really close when he shook my hand to see if he's like, it looks as good as he really does on film because he's like 60 years old.
Yeah.
Blew my mind. He's just got a glow about him. I don't know if it's the Scientology or what's been good to him, but he looks that good. I thought he'd just have caked on makeup, or he has so much money they digitize things out, but he looked great.
Yeah. Well, he's very healthy. I mean, he's very healthy. He takes care of himself. He looks great. I mean, he's still doing action films. I mean,
he does his own stunts.
Right. I mean, amazing. And I've heard he's very nice. So it probably was pretty cool to see him. I mean, he's a big star.
Yeah. The day I was there was very cool. Everyone, if you look on IMDb, that is in the film was mostly there that day.
Oh, good. Yeah. And that's coming out this year, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
So stay tuned. And then any recommendations for actors out there on acting? Words of advice?
Words of advice. Never give up. I know you hear that so many times. I'm 50. I hate to date myself, and I'm still plugging away. I'm still playing small roles like the Maître D. I get lucky with the independent stuff that I do, so I can grab on to meatier roles. So I suggest getting out there and doing, if you're new to it, student films. LA has UCLA, USC Film School, AFI. They make really good stuff. Start building your reel, get really good headshots. Don't scrimp on headshots. I did that for years where I only want to spend $200. I don't want to spend $400 or $500 on headshots. It's worth it. It's your calling card. Nowadays, it's just a small little thumbnail of you that they scroll through. So you really want it to, your eyes got to pop, and you really want to have a really good picture. So that's one of the things you really need to invest in. But when I say don't give up, I know everyone says that, but in my case, at my age, my manager has shared this with me because I've gotten discouraged so many times. And my manager says, no, you know what? You're at the age where people are quitting. Like, people are quitting if they haven't got there, whatever there is, or
right.
or have made it. There's more opportunities for you. And I've actually seen that as I've gotten older. Now I'm starting to get, it's weird to play like the old senator or the cranky old redneck, or it's weird for me to see myself in those roles. I'd love to be playing the young detective that's breaking the case. Now I'm playing like the older detective that's on the verge of retirement, that's coming out of the bar, and he's dealing with his alcoholism and his troubles at home, and he's going to catch the serial killer, his last case before he retires. So I'm getting richer roles, I think, as I'm getting older.
Yeah.
So yeah, just don't give up. Study. Always be in a class. Even during COVID, I've taken online classes. It just keeps you fresh. Keep doing short films, do 48s, just stay fresh and keep doing it. Work on monologues at home. Work on your craft. Just work on your craft and be ready when that moment comes, when you get an opportunity for that role, or they call you in, that you nail it and you're the one they want.
Who are some of the teachers that you've worked with?
In San Diego, I worked with Billy Cowart. Is great. He's gets to the psychology of acting. He breaks you apart. He'll see your nervous tics, or the things you do with your body that are not part of the character, and he'll call you out on it, which I think that's great, because on film, so many things you do are picked up. Like, every little thing you do is picked up. If you go like this, I'll put my hand up here where you can see it. If you do this with your hand on a table, it's just like people are going to watch your hand. Mm-hmm. It's not just that. I just think he's a great teacher. I studied at the Stella Adler in Los Angeles with Deborah Wasling. She was great. Atlantic Theatre Company, I got to study with William H. Macy, David Mamet.
Wow.
6-week workshop that I took in Los Angeles, which is one of the best acting classes I've ever had. Yeah, I just so many Margie Haber. There's so many teachers over the years.
Yeah.
It's never ending. But I actually taught an acting class for about a year and a half at Halo Cinematic, the local studio here, and I learned more about acting teaching that class than I did in most of the classes that I've taken. It's a different thing when you get on the other side of it and you're watching people and you're seeing how it works. And I actually picked up an acting tool. Maybe I can share with other actors that I kind of created for myself that really seems to work. There'll be if you're doing a scene, I would have the actors come up with one sentence that kind of sums up what they want in the scene. So the first time they read the scene, they would have to say that line. The one scene that I remember really well was a male and female actress were doing a scene from Heat, the scene with Al Pacino and Robert De Niro, and they would say their line. They're like, I'm if I have to kill you, I won't hesitate. And then their line was, she was the cop, he was the crook. Her line was, he used the F word. I want to screw you, and then I'm going to arrest you. And his thing was like, I want to screw you, and then I'm going to kill you. So they would say that after every line. So it was like, and I won't hesitate. And he's like, I'm gonna screw you, or I'm gonna screw you, and then I'm gonna kill you. And it was just like this whole, it would completely change that scene to something completely different that was on fire. And I was like, wait, I think this little tool that I came up with works. So if you can come up with a sentence that sums up exactly what you want in that scene, while you're working on, just while you're reading through it the first couple of times, you read your scene, say that sentence at the end of each, not each sentence, but like a section of lines. So if you have like a little monologue, say it at the very end. If you have one line, say it at the very end. It was so cool because actors never come prepared to their acting classes. I always say memorize the scene, but they don't. So, but they know I would make them put it down. So they'll do the scene a couple of times with that, and I make them put it down. You'd be surprised when they have that sentence, when they know what they really want in the scene, how close they are to the dialogue, having the dialogue memorized without even working on it. Yeah, that's a cool tool that I think I found. Music is also a tool. I always have a song for every character that I play. For the Maître D, it was putting on the Ritz, like the 1930s scratchy version of it. I wanted to, and every day before set, I would tune in on Sirius Radio to the 1930s channel, and I would be listening to 1930s music on the way there. I have friends in LA, but when I'm working on something like that, I want to focus. So I stayed in a hotel. I stayed in this this hotel that was built in the 20s, and it just, you could feel the energy of the place. Just had that. I don't know if it was haunted or what it was, but you could feel the energy. It really, really got me into character. So stuff like that.
Well, anything else that you do to prepare for roles? I've heard people write in journals, and what do you do? And how do you, when do you start memorizing the lines? How do you do that?
So like I said, with the Maître D, I watched Pretty Woman and I watched 1930s movies. And then I created this character and this backstory. It was like the father of Barney, what's his last name? I can't remember the last name, but I played his father and, taught him everything I knew. And so it was like, I just used it. Like I have this little boy at home, and I want to do a good job at my job and impress my clients so that I get good tips and can give him nice things. So like all of that kind of flowers your character, even though my lines are just like, oh, Mr. Makewitz, your tape is right this way. Like, you know what I mean?
Right.
It's silly sometimes the extent we go to, but I always like to keep, do a backstory of my character, like whose parents were, where he grew up. It might be too much sometimes, which I kind of learned from the David Mamet School of Acting when I studied with the Atlantic Theater. He's against all of that backstory, and he feels like it just clouds everything. You should just focus on the moment and just what's going on right now. Just focus on what's going on right now, and don't think about who your parents were and who all that stuff is. But I still think there's some value to that, so I still do that.
Well, and I think it adds to the role because you're bringing depth to your role, even if it's just a line. I think sometimes that, when people put more work and energy into what they do, it shows, and then people want you. So I think going above and beyond is a good thing.
I think it always enhances the performance more an actor does. I know Gary Oldman does that. You watch him work, there's a role he played in True Romance. It was like a 2-minute scene, but he played this half black Creole Cajun pimp, and it's one of my favorite Gary Oldman lines. And he just transforms. That guy transforms in every role he plays.
Yes.
I heard on Mank he was kind of bummed that they didn't let him have prosthetics. Because he feels that helps. That really helps him. Like when he played Churchill, and Fincher said, "No, this is you. I want you to embody this character physically," which is cool, and I think he did.
Thank you so much for being on the show. I mean, I think that we got a lot of good tidbits and also some things about some stars as well.
You're welcome. Yeah, thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for listening. I encourage you to get out there and make a film. Reach out to your local filmmakers group to get involved and connect. Please subscribe to the show if you like it, and follow me on Instagram @TammyMcGarrow. Until we meet again, what's your story?